Hello, this is Simracing Corner, and I have a question for you. Do you need a high refresh rate monitor for Simracing, or is the common standard of 60Hz good enough? And feel free to drop your comments below the video with your thoughts on this subject. The idea behind this video was inspired after seeing this question posted on forums from time to time, and responses from the Simracing community fall on both sides of the camp. This can be quite confusing for a lot of people who are thinking about buying a high refresh rate monitor and really want to know whether spending the extra on this upgrade is going to be a game changer or not for driving games. From me, I'm going to give you my perspective on this question that I've discovered through my tests, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what you can expect, plus a few other questions you'll need to ask yourself before upgrading. Let's start with the basics. A 60Hz monitor is capable of displaying a maximum of 60 frames per second, and a 144Hz monitor is able to display up to 144 frames per second. Of course, there are monitors with refresh rates between 60 and 144 and even higher these days, up to 240, maybe even more by the time you watch this video. So the Hertz value represents the maximum number of image updates the screen is able to output, and of course a higher frame rate means a smoother moving image going into your eyeballs. Even dragging windows around your desktop is observably smoother above 60Hz. Not that it really matters on your desktop, but you know, it is a thing. The power of your PC is fundamentally going to restrict the maximum amount of frames that can be produced regardless of the monitor hertz. So be sure to check that your system has enough raw power to output at a higher frame rate. Indeed, you may also be looking to jump to a higher resolution monitor at the same time, so do remember the more pixels being rendered will impact the performance of your GPU as well. So don't forget, upgrading your monitor may also require a more powerful graphics card for you to take full advantage of a new monitor. Right, off to the testing and my results. To get a full perspective on this subject, I tried different screens including my projector, and from my point of view I found 60Hz to be perfectly adequate, providing a smooth moving image on the track. My 43-inch TV, 24-inch monitor and projector are all running at 60Hz. And during my tests, I really didn't feel a higher refresh rate was necessary or would provide much of an enhanced experience. Yeah, okay, that's quite odd, isn't it? But most people who have a high refresh rate monitor would say that is a ridiculous statement, and I would have agreed had I not performed all these tests. And these are simply my subjective observations I'm describing. But we're not finished. That is not my final answer. There is more to come, so keep watching. Outside of racing games, I do play quite a lot of fast-paced shooters, and the difference between 60 and 144Hz is very much a night and day experience, and much better at 144Hz. Here, with rapid changes of direction, the higher refresh rate is very obvious, and there are some quite big advantages of a smoother image being more pleasant to view, it's more natural, and it makes it easier to aim. It's just basically clearer. Playing at 60Hz, there is a slight jarring choppiness to the picture while making rapid movements. Yeah, so there's very clear observable differences while playing games like this, and an upgrade I would say is very much recommended if you do like these types of games. So returning back to Simracing, why am I not noticing the same clear benefits? I wondered whether during my time spent with those 60Hz screens I just became acclimatized to that 60 frames per second maximum frame rate. Well, okay, so more testing was required, and I moved things over to my sim rig where we have a Predator 35-inch ultra-wide monitor. It can be overclocked to 200Hz, but I always run it at just 144Hz. That seems to be good enough. So what I ended up doing was going between 144Hz and 60Hz on the same track, just testing the same cars and focusing my attention on the smoothness of the image. And yes, there is a difference of smoothness, of course, in favour of the higher refresh rates. But the key aspect in sim racing, a lot of the time, it wasn't so obvious. And I worked out why. And it's simply because the motion on screen is quite different to, say, a first-person shooter. So let me explain. Here the visuals are changing very rapidly with the continuous sweeping motions up and down, left and right, and that changing image is very quick, it's very erratic with my mouse movements. But in sim racing, the motion on screen isn't as hectic, and our attention is aimed mainly at that plain grey strip going down the middle of the screen. We're generally not taking in the sights while looking straight down the track. Whether it's 60 Hz or higher, the track itself being quite a plain kind of looking object, looks exactly the same regardless of the frame rates. However, when I began concentrating my attention on the background, the scenery, I can see there is a difference in the picture smoothness between 60 and 144, but usually it's most notable when navigating tight corners. Objects are moving across the screen most quickly at this point, and there is an advantage of the higher refresh rate, those extra frames. It gives us a smoother motion which produces an overall clearer image during those moments. Also observing the other cars buzzing around immediately in front of my bonnet, their movement appears a little bit smoother as well, but generally 60 Hz and sim racing has been pretty good so far at this point. Sure, it's always nicer to have that more fluid moving picture of the higher refresh rate, but from my point of view, on balance, I wasn't experiencing the same level of improvement as I do when I'm playing first-person shooters at a higher refresh rate. But before leaving things like that, I did run a couple of additional tests to push the limits. Firstly, a kart race, and here the higher refresh rate was actually a fair advantage. We're dealing with this continuous series of corners and brisk changes of direction. I found the higher refresh rate was very helpful because the fast motions of everything moving so quickly on screen, the increased visible frame rate improved the drive. Under these specific conditions, making the picture appear sharper, reducing blur, and that was a big win for 144 Hz. And my final test was rallying. I figured, well, it's graphically quite different from racetracks and worth comparing. And here again, it was much more comfortable using the higher refresh rates. Those extra frames gave a clearer moving image, which you may be surprised to hear. It actually made it easier for me to drive. That smoother motion of the visuals helped me drive with more confidence. Of course, none of it gets captured through this recording using my webcam. It's recording at 60 frames per second, so yeah, you're not going to really see any difference, I expect. And everything I've shown you probably looks all the same. Yes, it's something you have to kind of try yourself, and I guarantee you kind of will understand what I'm talking about. In summary, after all this testing, I would certainly say driving games at 60 Hz is good enough for most conditions. Technically, a higher refresh rate screen isn't going to make you a better sim racer, so at least you know that. Although at times it does help with close-up scenery whizzing past, because it's just a clearer image. The motion is just smoother, it just makes things easier to see. So my preference is the higher refresh rate at 144 Hz, as it just eliminates all compromises. The smoother picture is more natural and lifelike, and so for my money, yes, it is worth it for that enhancement, but certainly I find a higher refresh rate is more beneficial for the other types of games I play, more so than in sim racing. If you're happy with your screen size, resolution and general picture quality of your current 60 Hz setup, I wouldn't say upgrading to a higher refresh rate monitor is absolutely essential for sim racing. However, if you are looking to replace your current monitor for other reasons, I would say yes, it is worth spending the extra if you can afford it. It is worth it. You will enjoy the benefits of that upgrade still. And that's it. Well, does that answer the question, is 60 Hz good enough for sim racing? Well, I suppose it has for me, as I've been able to experience it with my own eyes through my testing, but quite difficult to express in a video recording which doesn't have the sensitivity to demonstrate that difference visually. It's something, yeah, you do need to try firsthand, and my words will start to make sense, I reckon. So that was an interesting experiment which I thought was worth trying out, and hopefully you did too. Please drop your comments below the video and subscribe if you like this kind of content, as I will be back soon with something new. So thank you for watching, happy simming out there, and bye bye for now.